and welcome back to the Self-Wealth Real Estate Podcast. Today, I am interviewing Tanya Rooney. I believe she's our first American guest. So Tanya she lives in the States. She's a real estate investor I met through a mastermind down there. She's also a friend. We've been friends for several years, and we've been on accountability calls together. Today, we talk about her journey to get to where she is, how she ran a flipping business, how she's very, very good at networking and have other people give her advice. Like if you're looking for a mentor, the way she approaches these things is the right way to do it, where she has a huge network of people in her corner. In addition to that, she then talks about her Airbnb and short-term rental business. So anyone interested in that space and the potential there, this is a really good listen. So thanks for tuning in and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the show, Tanya.
Thanks, Luke. I appreciate you inviting me.
I think you're our first American guest on the show. I've known you, I don't know how long we've known each other. Did we meet on the cruise?
We might have, but I'm going to go with it's probably been at least 5 years now then. Like 4
Yeah,
5.
Cruise was just over 4 years ago. So somewhere in that time. I've been fortunate to get to know you through being in an accountability group with you, or multiple accountability groups, which done a little bit differently than some other ones, the way we were doing it, but I enjoyed it. And we us and some other investors would get together and have regular calls and discuss what we're up to and share ideas. And yeah, so we got to know each other and it was up in our lives and the way we think together. And I always really liked you, Tanya. I know you have a good head on your shoulders, and you're a good person, and you've done some cool stuff. So I wanted to have you on the podcast. And like I said, you're, I think, our first American guest here. So welcome.
This is fantastic. I hope I don't give us all a bad name. But not all like me.
Bad for them then. So tell us, where are you? Where do you live? And then what did you do before real estate?
Yeah. So I am in the Minneapolis and St. Paul market. So Minnesota. And I have a couple of short-term rentals here, or a handful of them, and that's what I do at least now. But back in the day, I'm going to call it back in the day, which is a hilarious statement because I'm still in my 30s. But I started out at a commercial real estate company. It's worldwide. Most of you probably heard of it. It's called CBRE. I worked for them for about 10 years doing project management. So I was an owner's rep project manager. So I took, commercial spaces and found people an architect. I found them general contractors, furniture, moved them in, decommissioned their own space. Like that's where I actually got all of my start in real estate, was around commercial brokers and commercial clients. Yeah.
And do you still do a bit of that work?
Yes, actually I do. I pick up random projects here and there, typically like moves and decommission. So when somebody wants to, they're sending all of their employees home because they don't use their offices anymore, they'd bring in a person like me to get rid of everything or to kind of get everybody situated at home. So
cool. That's cool. That sounds like a practical skill set for organizing real estate in general. So how did you get into real estate, and tell me a bit about it and what you do now?
Yeah. So that same corporate job that I had for 9 years, like one day I felt crappy. Honestly, it was a Saturday and I was talking to a client and I was really pissed about what this client was making us do. And they were just trying to save a few $1,000s on like an $8 million project. And I was like, why am I doing this on a Saturday? Why am I so frustrated about this? This is ridiculous. Literally it was going to make what he was asking us to do was just going to make us have to have more work. And it seemed like, why on earth am I doing this? It just kind of dawned on me. So I actually reached out to a couple of friends that I went to the gym with, and I was like, oh my God, I need something different. So one of them had been telling me for a while, like, you should flip houses, like, give it a try, yada, yada, yada. So I finally took her up on that, and I called her and I was just like, what should I do? Like, how do I learn all of that? So I binged on BiggerPockets for a few months probably. And I honestly started making offers within probably a month. And we had a place within 2 to 3 months of starting. So I remember it happened like at the end of May, and we had a house by the end of August or something like that.
And what year is this?
I think this was 2017.
Okay.
At least that's what makes the most sense to me, was 2017 when I've done the math. And so it just like that one client conversation just like put me over the edge. It felt like I was getting punched in the gut, and I was like, I'm done with these gut punches. So fast forward, we actually got a house. We started flipping. We flipped for a couple of years. I think we've probably done between flips, wholesales, and holds. We've probably done about 20 projects of some kind or 20 properties. And so I flipped for a few years. I ended up meeting you in those few years because I joined, like once I realized that I would want to do this to get out of my job, because that was the whole point. At some point, I would be able to quit. We did like our first house and we bought our second house. And I was like, okay, if we're really going to do this, we're going to need to learn a heck of a lot more. So we joined a mastermind, and it happens to be the same mastermind that you were in at the time. And I learned new things. I was able to quit my job relatively quickly. And I flipped for a few years, and now we're in short-term rentals.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, I remember you at that time. The mastermind was 7-figure flipping. We were both members at the time. I think we're going to have the owner of that, Bill Allen, we're scheduling him to come on in a few months on this podcast. So that'll be cool to have him on.
He's fantastic to talk to. Honestly, that guy, he's quite clever. It's really fun to learn from a person like that. So.
Absolutely. So how did you go from flipping to short-term rentals? Kind of what was that? What was the first one like? What was the thought behind that? And how did it go?
Yeah. So, we actually had a flip. I think this was in 2020. We had a flip that wasn't selling for what I wanted it to. We spent a lot of time on it. There was a lot of stuff that was happening in the Twin Cities. Like the pandemic had started in 2020, and then the George Floyd stuff happened in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And some of those after effects were like, they affected what was happening with real estate in the cities. A lot of people are getting out of certain areas and going to other ones, and any other one that kind of mirrored what that area looked like, it kind of didn't do as well. And so our house wasn't selling. So I actually was working on a contract for deed. Somebody had reached out and said, hey, would you do this contract for deed? So I hopped on the call with actually somebody else from 7-figure flipping, Jeremiah, and I was like, I don't know how to do one of these. Can you help me? And then he gave me some advice, and he's like, this is how you would structure it. And then he told me, well, Tanya, have you looked at, making this into an Airbnb? Have you looked at AirDNA and stuff? I was like, no, I don't even know what that means. Like, tell me more. So he hopped on a call, he hopped on that website and showed me all of the statistics or the analysis that AirDNA did. And he's like, even if you can do just a portion of this, he's like, it'd be pretty good. It's like, maybe you should try it. So we decided to cancel that. We just said no to the contract for deed right then and furnished it, and haven't looked back. Like, honestly, we've done some new things to that specific house, but otherwise that's one of our big money generating houses. And it was really fun. Like, it has been really fun. Honestly, like, flipping was fine, but it didn't do the best things for my marriage. Like, I'd be mad at a plumber, and I would come home and be mad at my husband, Matt. And he is like the coolest guy. I'm just like, it's not about you. It's about this plumber that I'm super frustrated with. So because of that, like, flipping just honestly, like, some people are so good at it. And I love watching those people. I've seen it happen time and time again. And I just don't think it was like, I just wasn't the best at it. So, fast forward to getting into short-term rentals, they are totally my jam. Like, this serves like the personality type that I have. It's like a great marrying of my real estate background and my customer service background and communications, like, that I've always had to do and that I went to college for. I feel like I'm actually using my degree in a way, because like I had to learn about all these ways that we communicate with other people. And so now that I'm in short-term rentals, it's like I'm finally in the spot where I'm supposed to be, for sure.
So what does the portfolio look like these days in short-term rentals?
So I've got 5 properties in Minneapolis and St. Paul. We've got some pretty big houses. Like, I tend to do big short-term rentals because I like to have, honestly, the whole reason that we started buying big ones was because I really like girls' weekends and like retreats and things like that. And because of that, I'm just like, I need a house that I could have all of my friends over to. So we have a 6-bedroom, 4-bath, 5-bedroom, 3-bath, and then we have a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, and then a couple of little ones. And they've all been like, they were houses that we could get either off market or on market. Like, we've done a little bit of both. They did need work, like every single one of them. Our last one only needed like $10,000 of work, but we've spent up to $70,000 in work on one. because of like just the rehab portion. So we try to buy ones that are kind of looking pretty tired and gross and then make them into something cool. We try to put a little bit more design forward, but than we ever have been, because that's what we know that actually attracts short-term rental guests. So,
how have you found most recently? Because I know, I had some short-term rentals that were like cottages, vacation properties, and they did pretty well. And then when the pandemic hit, they died for a short amount of time, and then they blew up like insane. And then they did well for a while, and now the economy is struggling a little bit. And I feel like there's also more available. And so I think good properties still book all right, but not nearly as well as they used to. So how do you find your kind of portfolios doing these days currently? Obviously, we're going through the winter still, so it's slower, but how are you seeing things?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed this exact same thing. And we've looked at our numbers, and our numbers in 2023 were great. Our numbers in 2022 were really great. And our numbers in 2021 were good. And we're back to a mixture of 2020 and 2023 numbers. So 2022, we're not even, like, we can't compare to that year because that was the one that was bonkers. Like, we were making so much money. It was crazy. Just like, how on earth is this happening? But we've been able to maintain still like normal numbers, like what should be considered normal numbers. And there are times that have gone down and gone up. But I think, at least with my experience, has been we're better at things. Like, we're better at pricing. We're better at gauging what's happening in the market. We do flex to what's going on in the market. We use a pricing algorithm tool like Price Labs, like a lot of people should use. And that kind of says what's going on. And we rely on that. We also have hired a revenue manager who is telling us literally year over year what's happening with our numbers. And that has made me calm down like crazy, because he's telling me, in February, we actually did better than last year. And, again, we're not comparing to 2022, but he can tell me year over year how we're doing and where we're trying to like push numbers. We're smarter about when things matter, like pricing tools know what's going on. If all of a sudden T-Swift is coming to your town, it's going to raise your prices, because that's what a pricing tool should do. But the pricing tool doesn't know that we're in the middle of 3 colleges, and it doesn't know when graduation weekend is, when move-in weekend is, when parents' weekend is. So we have gotten more sophisticated, I guess I would call it, because of our revenue manager saying, like, here, these are the weekends that matter. Like this random festival in, downtown St. Paul, like, we need to know when those things are, because then our prices go up and we get it. Because, like, I know, like, one of my houses is 3 or 4 houses away from McAllister College, which is a really nice private school in St. Paul. And, like, I need to know that graduation weekend is, May 19th, because our prices shouldn't be $130 a night. They should actually be $210 a night, because we are seriously 4 houses away. Like, this is, like, knowing where your house is and knowing those perks, that's what's going to make you level up. And then just like as a baseline, you have to have better listings, really good pictures, and like what's in the pictures needs to be at the house, and better design. Like, I feel like those are the people that are rising up right now. I talked to a friend recently, and she said, if you want Swiftie results, she just actually went live with Swift at Taylor Swift's house that has gone viral and done all of that. And she's like, if you want Swiftie results, you have to like put in Swiftie effort. And if you want fine results, you can have a fine house and you'll get fine returns. And I find that to be probably the most accurate statement ever, because when you are looking out on Airbnb, VRBO, or direct bookings in any way, you can see the places that you're like, oh, like, how do you become an house? Like, that somebody would do that over, because those are the kinds of people that are coming. Doesn't mean like, the guy's trip that's coming just to play golf and they're not even going to be there very long, that they're not going to stay there too. It's just knowing like who you're marketing to, and then marketing to that person. Like, that's what's going to actually give you a good house.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, just the other day I was looking, planning a trip for a few days. I was looking at Airbnb in the city in the States, just what was available. And, there's a lot of condos and things like that. And it makes me think of, the difference between kind of when someone stages a house themselves versus when a professional stager does. And it's the extra layering that misses in some of these properties. Like they're like, yes, I have a couch and I have side tables and there's, a piece of art on the wall. We're done, but then you see a professionally staged house, which we have really, like, for example, our stuff in the Ottawa area that we flip, our stagers are great. And they use like a very kind of chill boho vibe kind of furniture, like, in a modern way as well. But they layer it. So you've got your couch, you've got your side tables, but then there's, you've got, multiple throw cushions on it, with the all been karate chopped, and and you've got some vintage book on one of the side tables with, like, I don't know, glass spectacles or something. And then there's also, those wooden beads on a string kind of thing. They layer it, and your coffee table has stuff, and there's a blanket or a throw on inside, and you've got an area rug and the lamps. And so they just add this layering in, like even in the kitchen, they'll open on the kitchen counter, they'll take a cookbook, they'll open it up, they'll put it on like a book stand, and then they'll put like a wooden cooking spoon on it, like we're in the middle of cooking, but somehow the rest of your kitchen is perfect. But it layers in these elements of feeling more like a home.
Makes it a home. It really makes it like takes it from, okay, here's a place to stay, to a home. Like hotels kind of can do this, but you're not in a home at a hotel. Like it's never a thing. But in a short-term rental, you can be at home. Like somebody can do a really good job and make you go, oh, this is great. Like I've heard things before at other conventions that it's like, you should be using your house. Like it needs to be a place that everybody would want to stay. So it needs to be better than my own house. So if my house is this, I need it to be this because I want to stay somewhere nicer than my own house, especially if I'm on vacation. And I don't
different.
Yeah.
Different than my own house, right? Like it shouldn't, I mean, especially if I'm traveling, like I'm not there often. It might as well be somewhere different than where I already live. Like I don't want it to just look like any other suburban house that I already live in.
Put a mural. I'm not going to put a mural in my house. Like it's not going to happen. But man, if I go and there's a mural, and especially if I'm with a group of friends or like, doing something like that, it's like, yeah, I want it to be cool. Like this is way cooler than just a gray wall.
And especially, I think if I'm booking with friends, like for friends, or like if I'm traveling alone, I care a lot less. I need a bed. If I'm traveling with others, I want them to kind of be like, oh, good job. Like, good job in choosing this place. Good job in choosing a place with a foosball table or a bunch of board games or a cool mural or, a record player, whatever it is. Good job in choosing this. Or there's a hot tub in this one. Oh, that's awesome. Great that you booked it. Sometimes you book stuff based on making sure that there are options to impress your guests or other people you're going with or your loved ones that you're going with, versus like you may not use it. You may book the place with a hot tub so that your friends have the option to use the hot tub, and you may not even use it that trip, right?
Yep, you're 100% correct. Like it's just, how can I do this thing that's going to accommodate all of me and my friends, and we can have fun, and like again, it just needs to be better than whatever you have. So like I look at listings all the time. And I'm just like, I don't want to feel like I'm in a college dorm room. Like I'm almost in my 40s. My husband is in his 40s. I don't want to stay in a 20-something's apartment. Like that's never what I'm looking for. I'm going to pay a little bit more. So why on earth are there still people out there that don't have some of these things? It's like a red throw pillow on a gray couch. Thanks. I appreciate the effort you've put in. Like give me something more. Yes. The throw blankets and stuff like. And sometimes it just costs like $100. Like go to TJ Maxx and literally buy throws and crazy pillows. Right. Yeah.
I mean, it makes me think of like the young 20-something-year-old bachelor who has a girl come over and she's like, he doesn't even have a headboard, on his bed. Kind of thing, right?
Probably doesn't even have toilet paper because he forgot to pick it up this week. It's true. The difference is though, you feel the difference, and you can feel like I'm in a group called the Hospitable Hosts, and I mean, truly, we're hospitable because we think about how you're going to feel. Like, is there enough bowls for everybody if we all decide to have yogurt at the same time in the morning? I've been to a place that touted 16 people. There were 3 bowls. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'm a grown up. Like, I'm not sharing a bowl and or eating out of it, washing it, and then giving it to my neighbor. Like, that's not a thing when you're an adult. So, like, you need to act like that when you're actually fitting out a house like that. Like, those are the kinds of people that raise up. There's a reason they have 5 stars.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, shoot, I forgot my question. Oh, I'd like some tips for managing Airbnbs better.
Okay.
So you mentioned Price Labs using that, using a revenue manager. But what do you, can you give us some advice on how to most efficiently manage it and also give the best guest experience with the, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Let me start with my tech stack. So I actually have like a bigger tech stack, but there are 3 that I think everyone should have. Like if I could reverse it and like start when I started and bring anything in, it would be like a Price Labs. Wheelhouse does it too. I prefer Price Labs now. And the reason that I use that, a lot of people will say, well, I could just use Airbnbs. Well, Airbnb is in charge of Airbnb. They want to make most amount of money for their platform. So they don't necessarily care about you and your prices. Like it does swap up your prices, but it also will lower your prices when they think that you need to book. So Price Labs is like a third-party vendor that it's just a pricing algorithm that takes into consideration the houses in the area, the hotels in the area, what's going on. It's kind of like surge pricing for Uber. Like that's probably one of the easiest way to put it. It doesn't surge us up way bad, but like if all of a sudden the Super Bowl is going to be in your town, your prices are going to be a lot higher. And it's showing that compared to those people. So once I figured out Price Labs, we made like double, like truly, like we were able to double our prices from 2020. And that was a really smart thing because we needed to do that. We needed to raise our prices and we didn't know. So that's a huge one. My other one is Hospitable. So I am listed on iDirectBook, I do VRBO, and I do Airbnb. And because of that, there needs to be some automation set up. Like VRBO actually doesn't have very good automations for messaging and stuff guests. So I use Hospitable so that I can automate everything. Airbnb, you can automate everything. This is just like an extra layer. And when I have a direct book, so that just means Luke already knows me. He's going to come to my town. So he's going to book with me direct instead of using Airbnb and having to have those fees. So I need all of that messaging to be in one spot. So this is just like a PMS that like takes, which is a property management software. There is a lot of really good reporting in there. My locks are actually, clicked into that too, because there's some API integrations that we can use. But it's just like there's tons of different PMSs. Just pick one. It doesn't actually matter which one you pick. They're all going to have really good things and really bad things, but you have to learn something and just pick the one. The one that works the best is the one you actually use. And this one just, oh man, it streamlines so much things in my life, which is really, really fantastic. And then the third thing that I use or recommend to people is something called Breezeway. This is a personal preference. I care about cleaning and inspections and maintenance. And this is essentially my software for those things. My cleaners have to check in once they get on site to clean. So they start the clean, they have to take pictures. Within this is essentially our cleaning list, all the pictures of what it's supposed to look like. They tell me how the guests left it. They tell me if my supplies are low. They tell me like all the things. If anything's broken, it comes into here. And then we go through those reports and then we make, we streamline a lot of the stuff we do on the back end with those reports. And then I have an inspector come in afterwards. She has to use it as well. She or he, I guess I have both. And they come in and make sure the house is set up the way that I'm expecting it. Like if my pictures have the pillows in that certain way and that's the way the kitchen counter looks, I expect that to be for every single guest. Like I want that to be the experience, is that there's no bait and switch here unless it's way, way nicer. But we still don't do bait and switch. And so like those color pillows are literally the same color pillows that are going to be in real life and on my pictures. So you have an inspector come in and actually check the clean. We have really big houses, like our 6-bedroom, that takes at least 8 hours for one person to clean. And I found like after 4 or 5 hours, like cleaning standards, they don't plummet completely, but there's things that just get forgotten. And so I have somebody come back through. And then I have a laundry person that uses Breezeway. My maintenance person uses Breezeway, like everyone just does. And I really enjoy that program. And then everything else is kind of minuscule ones. Like I have a website that Luke can link to, and there's a spot that says referrals on it. And there's like everything that we use is on there.
Okay. Can you tell us the link to that?
Yeah, I think it's literally tanyarooney.com/referrals. And I have a list, and then I've got a couple of blog posts like about our tech stack because there's certain things that are really awesome and there's certain things that I don't care about personally, but all the ones that I use, I actually use them. So it's great. So yeah.
Yes. As you know, I've recently bought a motel. We're making it a bit of a destination. It's going to end up being a 15-room motel. And I do hope to list the rooms on Airbnb as well as direct book, and use a lot of the software and tools. And it is a bit the middle of nowhere, the property. It's kind of it's a summertime area. It's near like some really cool provincial parks, and there's some of the best fishing in Ontario there. Like there's fishing tournaments that run like very close by. Like, as soon as trout season opens, there's tournaments, and we're gonna have some of that kind of stuff. But in addition, we're also trying to go higher design and making it a bit of a destination in and of itself. But when we have those tournaments and things like that, and we've got snowmobile season and hunting seasons and stuff like that. So it's not exactly, some of that stuff isn't exactly the market for the boutique motel that we're doing style, but also we know that there's not much else available in the area, and that's also going to affect our booking prices. So making that an option as well. But yeah, I like all of these tools in the tech stack to help manage this better, because I've never managed a motel before. I've never had my team manage a motel, so we're learning all of this as we go. We've got a big reno ahead of us, though. We're big now.
I've got people that you can talk to about this. Like we almost bought a motel last year, for the people that are listening that don't know, and we decided to walk away from it after like extending twice. And it was a lot of heartache, but at the same time, it was definitely the decision that we needed to make. It was an important one, but man, the underwriting that I learned was so beautiful. Like it was like the spreadsheets that I got introduced to, and like the kinds of we went through, I think, 18 iterations of our spreadsheet to figure out like, how is this going to work? What's it going to look like? How much are we going to have to spend every single month on expenses? So I was able to connect with somebody else that helped me with all of that, and he helped me do all kinds of underwriting. And I think he just bought his 8th motel, and he is like crushing it. It's so cool. So I'll definitely link you with him, because seriously, real estate is real estate. Like we can all figure it out, but having somebody in your back pocket that actually knows what they're doing already, like just cut out all of the learning, or like cut out some of the learning and all of the heartache that you can. At least that's in your power. That's what I do anyways. Like that's why I join masterminds, is I'm like, oh, let's go get more information. Let's shorten the gap here.
That's exactly why we were in a mastermind together, because it does help to cut out some of the potential problems, and also to potentially give you ideas that you didn't have otherwise, like either save money or ways to make more money. And usually they more than pay for themselves. And masterminds in particular are a lot about the relationship and building relationships with others. So you're talking about this motel. Can you tell us more about this motel that didn't work out?
Yes. So we almost bought a motel in Wisconsin, which is right next to Minnesota. It's just a couple hours from the Twin Cities. It's a smoking deal. It still is. They got it for an even better deal. The partners that have it right now just don't. They just aren't working as well together as maybe they wanted to or something. And so they wanted to offload it. Well, they've got a really sweet loan on it right now. And if I had that loan, man, I would have a motel right now, but I don't. So we did all of our underwriting. I think we went under contract probably sometime in like June. And then by October, I think it was the end of June. And then by October, maybe even September, we backed out. So we went through all of the underwriting. I asked them so many questions. I shout out to them for actually answering most of my questions, because there was a lot. I've never bought a motel before. I've bought plenty of houses before, but you're looking at everything times 18. Like ours was an 18 unit, 4 different buildings actually. And there was a lot of work that needed to be done. It needed to be upgraded. It needed to not smell weird. It needed to have some new things put in. So we went through a lot of walkthroughs, a lot of underwriting. I hired an inspector to come through. And like I said, everything times 18 is really different. Like if I need 18 new plumbing fixtures, that's not just a couple $100. So like knowing those kinds of details when you're underwriting a motel, that's the reason that you partner with somebody that kind of remembers these things. I used an inspector, and an example I gave recently was like outlets. Like he told me every outlet that was dead or that looked weird or anything like that. And again, well, if there's 7 outlets per room, well, that's a lot of outlets to actually even when you're figuring out your numbers for rehab, you just some things you just don't think of. So finding the folks that do know more about commercial, more about like a motel, more about just that kind of like how we negotiate is really, it's a good idea to have. So we went through all of that. We had this thing was going to be bitching. Like I still am just like dreaming of like, I'm going to get to do a motel at some point, and I'm really excited for whenever that does come up, when the right property comes. But we were trying to raise money for it, and I think we had to raise like $500,000 or $600,000 for it. Like all in, we were going to be at like 1.1 million. Like I think the purchase price was probably around 500 or 600, and then we knew we were going to have to put in a few hundred to redo a lot of the things in the rooms, try to upgrade. Like all the electrical panels need to be upgraded. There was a break in one of the sewer lines that was going to have to be taken care of. We needed some better showers, and some of them were just really gross and old and tired. Some of them we had like 6 water heaters. So it was like, how can we figure out a spot to put these huge water heaters? How do we make them smaller and, be more efficient and make these rooms way cooler? So all in, I think our budget was going to be about 300 or 350. So we needed to raise, I think it was 500,000 or 600,000. We were able to raise half of that. And then I just kept having troubles. And this was honestly, last year when everyone
was having trouble as well.
Tumultuous. Yes, like it was tumultuous. So I couldn't get that. So I was like, okay, well, how do we make this deal work then, I guess, with a different amount of money? So we went through more iterations and kind of found, okay, well, we could cut some scope, and then we could hit the number we needed. And then we could cut. And then I did another iteration where we would take, we would do an SBA loan, and we would only have to bring $100,000 to the table. And then, but I had to cut enough scope that it wasn't fun anymore. Just like, this is like, some people can do projects and they just bang them out, and this is it. This is what you get. I am not like that. I knew I was going to be emotionally involved in this project. I knew it was going to take a year or year and a half, maybe even 2 years of my life to make sure that this vision was going to be able to come true, and then hand it over to somebody to keep going with the vision. And once I cut so much scope so that we could do that project, I was like, this isn't what I want to spend my time on, like, at all. And that is it's a big choice to make. Like, I lost money last year by trying to do that project. But I gained so much experience. Like, some people call it somebody coined it a failed motel deal. And I'm just like, I don't think it was a failure actually at all, because I learned so much. Like, it was essentially a semester of college last year. I was drinking from a fire hose. I learned so much about underwriting. I learned even more about raising money, because we raised money on all of our projects, but this was like a new version of raising money and telling people. And you have to have the confidence in your numbers, because you're literally taking other people's money. Like, if it was just bank money, I know this is mean to say, but if it's just bank money, whatever, like, we'll figure it out. But because they're going to get the asset in the end if something bad were to happen. But in this case, it was me, asking friends and family, asking acquaintances, asking people for money. So I needed to be confident in the underwriting. I needed to know that I could talk about those numbers at any time. When someone asked me a question on the fly, I could be like, oh yeah, this is how we're dealing with this. This is how we're prepping for this. This is how we're prepping for off season, on season. Because we had fishing stuff, on the calendar. Like, we had different summer activities on the calendar, like all these things. And it was like trying to ensure that we could charge enough money for what we already knew the vacancy was going to be, because there was going to be vacancy. Like, these upfront properties, you guys know all about upfront properties too, that it's like you might have to close for a month or two because it's so cold, or you don't need to use all 4 buildings. You really only need to use 1 building in the winter. So it's like making sure that you can pay all of your bills and still make enough money, and then engage the partners that can help you with that. Like, I engaged a guy that he has his own STR analysis, like, business, and it's called STR Insights. He hopped on the phone with me and he looked for me. Like, I linked up with a hotel person, like, trying to figure out how do I gauge occupancy and vacancy and like ADR and like, so an average daily rate, like, how do I do this? So he hopped on this call with me to compare me to all these things, and was kind of running through like, well, if you can make it at this number, this conservative number, you'll be fine. You'll make more than that, but use the conservative number. So it's just doing a lot of that stuff is really important, because you got to figure out some way that you're going to be successful.
Absolutely.
And up with other people's money, you got to be careful with that. I think you should be careful with that.
And I agree with what you were saying earlier about like the amount of, how much you have to pour into one of these properties. Like, like I said, I've set up 4, 5, 6 of them now at some point, Airbnbs, and compared to doing a flip, like, every property is unique. To do a good Airbnb, it needs to be custom. You can't just cookie cutter. And and it even goes into like sourcing like cool, unique things that you're going to add to it. And just, I poured blood, sweat, and tears into every single one of those Airbnbs that I've done. And this is not going to be any different. It's going to take more personal attention than, doing one motel is going to be equivalent to doing, 30 flips for me easily in terms of attention. So, that's going to take a lot of effort. But the result is if you pour that energy and love and blood, sweat, and tears into the project, you end up having an excellent property. So,
and people can do these at scale. I'm just not that person.
Some people can, but a lot of them don't turn out great. You can kind of tell when you're looking for Airbnbs. There's, you see ones where the hosts have tons of properties, and more often than not, there's consistently they have low reviews on average across their portfolio. Not all of them. There are probably some that do it well, but more often than not, you see ones that are, low average reviews because nobody cares in the same way.
Are you a savvy real estate investor looking to maximize your profits? Well, if you're buying properties off the MLS, you're not making as much as you could. The most lucrative way to boost your bottom line is by acquiring investment properties off market. By buying privately off market, you're able to save tens of thousands. Now, the problem is finding off market properties is really hard and takes a lot of time, effort, and money to do. Bliss is your number one source, delivering exclusive deals that you will not find on the MLS directly to your inbox. Bliss's extensive network and insider connections gives you access to properties that are not publicly listed and at a discount. We've helped hundreds of investors across Ontario and BC source the right properties at the right time for their portfolio. Buying assignable purchase contracts through Bliss at a discount helps facilitate higher returns, lower competition, and deals that align perfectly with your investment goals. From start to finish, Bliss's world-class team of real estate professionals makes the process seamless for all investors. If you're ready to elevate your real estate investment strategy, visit us at offmarketbliss.ca to join our buyers list and start receiving exclusive off-market deals directly to your inbox. The most profitable opportunities await, and they're exclusive to you and our valued buyers list members. For your next project, check out Bliss, the go-to source for off-market deals.
Yep, they really don't. And I think, again, you can do it at scale. It just looks different. And if you're going to do something that's 20 units or less, I feel like there's a lot of people putting a lot of pressures on these roadside motels that are now becoming a thing. And they're really, really cool. Man, there's some cool hotels out there and motels. But they're cool because of people like you and me. People like, my friend, Ryan, and my friend Mike, and my friend Andy. Like those people put different care into it, and you can tell. And then they've put a lot of, just a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and just even hiring and stuff like that. So you can tell the difference. And if you want those kinds of results, then you have to put in the effort, or you have to pay somebody to put in the effort. And if you're paying somebody to put in that kind of effort, the likelihood is they're a very expensive person because they know what they have. We want to have a good experience. And if you want a good experience, I think you have to put in an effort. Like, unreasonable hospitality is out there for a reason, that it's like, this is how we do these things. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you some of the stuff you've been talking about. When you were unhappy on that Saturday at your job, you spoke to some people you knew from the gym about flipping. And then you were working on a contract for deed, and you spoke to Jeremiah, and he suggested doing an Airbnb. You work with a revenue manager who gives you advice, and you were looking at this motel, and you spoke to Ryan and Andy and these people you're talking about, and you've spoken to people about underwriting, and you talk a lot about talking to others, going to others for advice. Can you talk about why you do that and what that does for you?
Yes, I love this question. It's probably my favorite question I've ever been asked, because for real, I think this matters more than people think. And some people are totally good at being solopreneurs. I don't know how they do it, but it's super cool. Like, I guess technically I'm a solopreneur because I have all these businesses that I do myself. But I do not think owning a business is like a individual sport. It's like, I think it's impossible personally, because I can't know all the things. Like, when I need design advice, I don't know a ton about design. I want to go to the person that is her jam and has been her jam for 10 years. Like, she knows what's happening in the market. When I need advice about what the heck I should do with a certain house, like, I'm going to go to these certain people. So I've actually noticed this in the last couple of years, that this is something I'm good at, or like I have a knack for, is finding communities of humans that are going to encourage me. And that's just like by happenstance. They like me. So I like, I feel like we encourage people to be in our lives that are kind of like us. At least, like, that's what I like to think, is a lot of people that I choose to be in my life are kind of like me.
Like attracts like.
Yes, that's what I was trying to think of. And but these people, like, I mean, they want to see you succeed. I want to see other people succeed. So I want to help them with whatever it is they have going on. I want to encourage them. I want them to have the coolest life that they could imagine, and then to actually have it. And I seem to find people that want that for me too. So I go to other people because I don't know all the things. And I actually can't even tell sometimes. Like, sometimes I have to talk things out with friends because I need them to see the logic, because I am, on the scale of or the culture index, I know what I am, and I know I'm really high emotion. I'm low logic. So I know that when I am too emotional about a certain thing in my head, I go to one of my very sciencey friends. I do this all the time. One of them is named Liz. And I'll go to Liz and say, I really need help being logical about this, and I can't set aside my emotion because it's running too high. So I go to other people because I know myself well enough that I need that help. So all of these communities that I've joined, it's like you were talking about, Bill Allen is going to be on your podcast, in the next few months. I mean, I go to him for advice on how to start, fill in the blank of whatever it is that I want to start, because he is really good at doing that thing. And I always want to shorten the gap. Like, why do I have to work that hard when I know 10 other people have worked that hard, and I still have to work hard to get there, but I could just use their experience to maybe shorten some of it, and hope that their experience also leads me to not getting sued. Because in real estate, I'm not kidding. Like, I mean, Luke, we've been in tons of groups with people that have been sued. And why wouldn't you want to hear how they got sued and how you should do things a certain way so you don't get sued? Because I don't want that to happen. Like, I don't want to be on the news for something shitty about, like, a house burning down and there not being any fire extinguishers or smoke alarms. I don't want to be in that house. And weirdly, I've always known I don't want to be in that house, but I needed somebody to tell me this is why it's important. So going to conventions, being in masterminds, utilizing the people around you will make you realize these things that you're good at, that you should lean into, and that you should care about. Like, it's important, and it's really cool. It's way more fun to not do things solo. I'm also an extrovert in an introverted world in a way, because solopreneurship is pretty introverted. Like, I mean, I could go days without, like, seeing people, but I don't go days without talking to people because I can't handle it. So it's just like, this is how I create a peer group, because I don't have coworkers anymore, because I'm either somebody's boss or I'm not. It's one or the other. And I can't have the same kinds of conversations with people that work for me, because it's not appropriate. And I, they still bring a lot of greatness to my team, but I need advice from people like you, Luke, from people like in our group, that it's like, I'm freaking out about this. What should I do? Or how do I, how do you guys do LLCs, and how are they all structured? And how do you do your QuickBooks? And I have these conversations all the time. I'm just like, oh, I bet you Justin will know that. And he'll just send a random text message.
I do have to say, in my life, I'm lucky to say that a lot of the people who work for me have become like good friends. And we do have a lot of conversations that others could consider inappropriate in terms of, like, being about our personal lives, but also about, like, mindset and business advice, and my project managers and kind of assistant, and they know how to, like, push me to get things done, because
it's been a long time. You've built teams in a completely different way than I ever have. Like, I know how big of some of these teams you've built. And you're like, I feel like you're quite a few levels ahead of me in that fact, because I've never built a team bigger than 4 people. And I agree that when somebody's with you for 3 or 4 years, like my assistant has been with me like a year and a half, almost 2 years now, and she totally knows what's going on with just my life. It's just, she's not in short-term rentals enough for me to be like, hey, this just happened. How the heck do I deal with this? She's never raised money, like those kinds of things. That's why I'm choosing peer groups. your team, I've met some people on your team, they're fantastic, but they've grown into your business and have taken portions, like they've made your business better. And that's what my assistant does. She makes my business better because I tell her about a thing that annoys me, or I tell her to do a thing, and she just blows it out of the water. And she's just like, oh, that is way better than I ever thought it could ever be. And that's why you bring people into your business, is because you want their point of view. That's why I bring designers onto short-term rental projects. I'm just like, I come up with an idea that I'm super excited about, but I don't know what the heck it's supposed to look like. And then all of a sudden they send you this PDF and you're like, holy crap, this is way better than I ever could have imagined. And this is exactly what I was picturing, but clear image, and people are totally going to come and stay in this motel because of this image. Like, this is so cool. So I don't want to say like they shouldn't become your friends. That's not what I'm saying. It's more of like, I have to find peers to help me with my business.
And different stuff. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even like, I find it hard sometimes to have people that I work with who can kind of understand my thought process, because I don't think in a linear fashion, which is good and bad. It's helped me in many ways, but it can complicate things. But at the same time, Erin, for example, on my team, she can practically read my mind, which is very, very nice for me, because she kind of sometimes knows what I need to do before I know I need to do it, and saves me a lot of mental anguish. One thing I was going to ask, so as kind of a further question to that is, not only do you go to a lot of people for advice, and you value that and getting advice from peers, something I find you do is you somehow create this culture where people want to help you, people want to come to you, people want to give you advice. I know I feel that way. If you were to call me for advice, or you want, if I can give you a hand with something, I'm going to automatically, as a default, of course I'm going to. So how is it that you create this culture, or where just people want to help and support you and give you advice, and how do you do that?
So it's a funny thing that you say that, because in my 30s, I've realized I am different than a lot of people, and I've always thought I was the same. Like, I mean, you see other humans and you're like, yep, they're the same height as me, the same age, whatever. I didn't know a lot of this stuff was unique until like I had more deeper discussions with more people, because I'm like, don't you always think, like, I'm a project manager, I was a project manager for so long, I'm always looking 6 months out. Like, this is just an automatic thing. So when I have my husband do something because I'm out of town, I'm just like, okay, you did that thing. Did you do these other 3 things? Because clearly they would have to be done as well. And he's just like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh. And I'm realizing it's because my mind works a very specific way. And this networking thing, this is another thing that I didn't know I was really good at until more recently. I love people. Like, people are my jam. Like, I enjoy like plucking people, especially the ones that don't like to talk to anybody, or they just seem really introverted. I want to pluck that person, and I want to figure out everything about them. Like, there's so many incredibly successful business people that just don't want to talk about it, or they just don't because they're not comfortable. So I have no idea how the heck I do this, but I do try to make people feel seen and heard. I actually care about people, so I can't say like I'm trying to make people feel like I like them. I actually do like them. I write things down in my phone, and I remind myself of, birthdays, and like all of these random things are just, I just didn't know other people didn't do it, because to me, it just seems easy. When somebody tells me they really like this kind of candy bar, I'll literally write it in my phone, because if I know that person well enough that I would ever give them something, I will know to go into my phone and look, oh, they really, really like this certain candy bar. I could surprise them with that. Like, it's this random thing that, again, I didn't know that I was special by doing some of these things. So when it comes to networking, I just talk about normal things. Like, it's funny, I used to be like, some of the friends I made in 7-figure flipping was I was on calls watching whoever was speaking, if Simmons was in the front of the room, whatever, on the Zoom, and I would look at other people's cameras and be like, okay, who looks friendly? And I would literally reach out to that person while we're on that call, and I would say something to them. And if they would do enough banter, we would end up becoming friends. And I mean, I did that with a lot of people. Like, if somebody was sleeping on the camera, because, if there's like 90 people on a phone call, there is weird stuff. Like, you just got to go check out people's cameras, because people are usually shoving their face with food, which is always funny. And then there's people falling asleep. There's people fighting with someone. There's somebody's kid going like this or like this at the bottom of the screen, like waving, waving, waving. Those are my favorite. And I would tell somebody about that thing. I'd be like, oh my God, Jeremiah, could you fit any more cheeseburger in your mouth right now? Because he eats fast. He's honestly one of my friends. but I've seen him. So I'll text him, be like, dude, like, slow down. I don't think you need to put that much hamburger in your mouth. Or when Howard is sleeping, because Howard was always sleeping on the calls, I would say something. So I feel like I just say these most obvious things to people, and then they're like, oh, what the hell is she going to say next? So like they're coming back for more, because who knows what else is going to come out. And I also like to connect people. Like, I think of like, Luke, when you need help, or you don't even need help, but you're talking about this motel, and I'm so excited that I know some really great motel people, and I want to connect them with you because I want you to see how awesome they are, and vice versa. Like, I want them to see you're awesome and you're going to do a great job. So why not, do cooler things? So I don't know how the hell I do it, but I'm really excited that people recognize it, because I think it's really fun. Like, I love communities. I love this about joining masterminds, because there's so many fun people. And when you remember that they're really good at that thing, people love to be good at something. So if I can recognize, Luke, you're really good at wholesaling, you're really good at building a team and actually delegating, because I know a lot of people at the top of businesses that still don't like to delegate, but you're really good at that thing. So if I need advice, I'm just like, oh, I should go to that person because he's already awesome at it. Like, why would I have to learn the whole thing myself?
Yeah. I mean, you make people, you care about people. And by doing so, you make people feel like they're cared about. And that matters. I have a quick story before we move on to the next section of the show. We were at Flip Hacking Live, which is like an annual kind of open event for associated with 7-figure flipping. And you were trying to have Mike Simmons, who's a mutual friend of ours, and one of, I guess, the members of the mastermind, one of the coaches, I would say. He was going to speak on stage, and you were trying to have him say a random word. You were trying to have him say xylophone on stage, and then he didn't do it. And I was like, and I was speaking on stage later, probably the same day or something. And I'm like, no, he didn't do it. I got this. Mike, I'm going to show you how it's done. So randomly talking through, I'm giving an example of a property, and I'm like, and I'm tripping over a xylophone, and randomly,
I burst out laughing. I was so loud. I remember.
I heard you laughing just in a quiet room, just you laughing yourself. So just the things you can make people do. It was fun. But I wanted to move on to the next segment of the show, where we talk about the best and worst deals we've ever done. So do you want to start with the worst deal that you've ever done, or your least favorite?
I don't like, so worst deal is always interesting, because I kind of almost say that as like a failure deal. And I don't buy into that we fail at things. We really just learn. So I'm going to give my biggest learning deal, because that was a good one. So, I bought a house from a wholesaler. It was just a really little house. I don't know. It was a few years ago. We didn't buy it for very much. I think it was probably like 90 or 110,000. The city almost, told me that they were going to like knock it over. And I was like, wait a minute, like, I just bought this house. What are you talking about? And they're like, well, you need to pull permits and you need all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Like, let's do it. So we pulled permits. We did redo things. We had to redo a lot of things. It was like a tiny house too. It was like 2-bedroom, 1 bath, but I swear it was only like 800 square feet. And while we were doing that, I had my contractor in the basement, and he's like, Tanya, have you looked in the basement? And I'm like, no, what? And this is the thing why we need inspectors. Sometimes if you're in the beginning of your like rental career or like a buying career, they're worth their money, because they will point out things that you do not know that you have to stumble through to figure out. So I had to stumble through this house, finding out, like, we went into the basement and all kinds of the rafters, or the just the main, all the choice, they were like cut into in different ways. Some of them were rotted completely. And I was like, holy crap, like, it was the whole friggin' thing. So $8,000 later, we were able to rebuild the entire thing. Like, we had to sandwich all kinds of 2x6s, and we had to put new beams in. Like, it was crazy down there. There was so much new wood. But I'm like, I'm already into this project, so I have to keep going. I'm not going to just knock it over and then all of a sudden get nothing. We might have made like $5,000 on that project, which is completely fine. But now I know there are other things that I have to look at. This is the reason, like, I'm fine at construction, but there are things that I do not know. So I would bring in a partner. So now, like, there is a specific person that I'd be like, hey, I really want this house, but will you come take a look at a few things, see what you see? Because that's not necessarily the way my mind works. I see schedules, I see budgets, I see all of this process, but I don't necessarily see some of these smaller things. So that was probably our worst one. We found a lot of weird stuff in there. Like, that was a weird one.
I think that's a good lessons. Because, I mean, again, our worst deals are definitely the ones we learn the most lessons from. But absolutely, like, flipping in particular, but also for rentals, understanding, unless you're buying something turnkey and, getting it inspected, whether it's an inspector or getting a contractor through, it's having a relationship. In your case, you're talking about a partner, getting possibly a trusted contractor that you can work with regularly, and you understand, they're honest with you, they share your opinion, they can price things correctly, they understand what's going on in houses and how they work, because houses can be complicated things. A lot of people don't realize, but there's an element where like houses, they breathe and they move, and there's an element where houses are almost like living creatures that need to survive. They need things to survive, and so some people don't understand that, and a contractor who understands that and how it goes together is, or contractor or partner, having that on your team can help prevent a lot of issues. Like, oh, they did this, but this is not going to last because of, we're going to have problems soon because they didn't do this part of it right. There's a lot of contractors who do things wrong too. So yeah, having that side of it is very important, and it's a good lesson to have learned. Now, what about the best deal you've ever done? Can you tell us about that?
So I think I have a short-term rental that is right next to a college. It's just a couple blocks away. No, a couple houses away. It's not even blocks.
What you were saying, 4 houses down?
Yes, the one that's 4 houses down from McAllister College. So that one, I ran numbers on it more recently because I kind of thought, I'm just like, oh, the calendar's kind of open. This thing's probably not even making any friggin' money. I should check. And then I look and I'm like, its occupancy was fantastic. Like last year, I think it's got the highest occupancy that we have, which is like 60% or something, because we don't care about 100% occupancy. We want to make money. We don't need to have it, filled the entire time. So I looked at it, its occupancy was really good. The money that we made on it last year, like it's a small house with, like 3 bedroom, 1 bath. We flipped it when we got it. Like, we had to take out the pool that was in the backyard. It was an above ground pool. There was a garage actually in the backyard that was falling down. Like we had to do a lot of work to it. And, it is now though, such a consistent moneymaker for us. Like it is beautiful. Once I looked at those numbers, I'm like, oh, this thing's making really good money. Like, I think like my expectation of all of our houses is $20,000 in my pocket at the end of the year. So, which I think means that's net. So I want net profit to be at least $20,000 per house. Otherwise it's not worth it. And this one was making like 30 or something. And for what it is, for the small house it is, I'm like, this is fantastic. Such great news. Like we've done a couple of things recently to kind of make it a little bit more designy, or like, put some wallpaper in, which is easy. We did a couple of things to a porch, and, we try to brand some stuff here and there. But it's just like this consistent moneymaker. And once parents found out that we were where we are, they love this friggin' house. Like it is so close. There's actually parking. If their kids are living in the dorms, like it's mega close for them to just like bebop back and forth. A lot of sport parents know about it. So they might come in for a month. They might come in 4 times in 1 month, because we have a parent that does that like consistently. Just, is this open? Just like, does your kid know you're here? Does he know you? Does he want you here this much? Because it's so convenient. So honestly, that was a really big win for us, because it's just a nice little house that just kind of pumps out cash flow, that it's like, it's easy. It's just, it just wasn't a heavy lift, which is really fun to have. Like not all houses are like that.
Yeah. So do you remember what you paid for this? Approximately?
I think we paid like $230 for it.
$230. And what do you think you've kind of spent in renovations?
I think we probably did about 40. I actually think we paid 160. We paid 160. We probably put in about 40,000 on it. We didn't do a ton to it, but there was a lot of demo because of that garage and the pool and floors and stuff like that. We redid a whole entire bathroom.
So you were 200,000 into it. You then financed it? You have a mortgage on it?
Oh, we typically do private money. So, but yes, we have a bank. We have a local bank that is so jammin'. Like, I love them. If they were nationwide, I'd tell everybody to like actually use them. But they do like flip money. When I was flipping, they were doing flip money at like 5 or 6%. So it was fantastic. And it was a bank, and they could still close in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, we don't have those in Canada.
Gotcha. So that bank actually just refinanced it into a smaller one. We used private money plus the bank to at least rehab it and all of that, and then we refinanced into a normal loan. That one just has that loan on it, and it's probably worth about like $275 to $295 now. So it's worth something, and it's got some equity in it, and it's so awesome.
And then on top of that, you cash flow $2,500 a month.
Yeah, probably about that. Like, I mean, I
1,000,
think
yeah.
I would say the whole year, but it's because like in Minnesota, we have these extreme seasons like a lot of you guys do up in Canada. So we would say like, I always do the rolling 12 of what we're
Yeah. So on average, 2,400 a month. That's great cash flow, and you made the equity, and it operates well. So that's a really good deal. What lesson would you say you learned from this? Is there a key lesson
From the good one or the bad one?
from the good one?
The good one, I'd probably say that there's houses out there on the market. Like we bought it on the MLS, and I don't know that you guys have MLS. Do you?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Something similar. So I bought it on the MLS. It doesn't mean you can't find deals on the MLS. There is like diamonds in the rough. You just have to like find them, and then be smart about your numbers. Like be smart about like ensuring you can do whatever your plan is. Like a lot of people love to do short-term rentals, but they might buy it and then figure out if they're allowed to do a short-term rental. I'm like, if you're buying it, the first call shouldn't be to the realtor. It should be to the city to find out, can you have a short-term rental license? Like, don't put all your eggs in this basket and then find out like it's very volatile for short-term rentals or whatever it is. And same with like rentals. Like, I mean, if it can be a rental, then don't buy it to be a rental.
Well, and I think another lesson that people could learn from this is that, I mean, obviously people always say location, 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 but understanding that having a draw that's consistent, you regularly have people coming. So in your case, the college that's 4 doors down, that's going to be a huge consistent draw. And with being that close to something that consistently draws people, you can charge more than the one that's 15 houses down because you're 4 houses down. There's nothing, you're one of the closest houses they could possibly be at. If people can afford it, they'd rather pay a little more and just have to walk less. They're not worried about, oh, is my son going to come over, but no, he doesn't want to walk the 15 minutes, right? But he'll walk the 2 minutes. So I'll see him more while we're there, or we'll be able to pop in and out, go for a nap, whatever, after dinner. So yeah, that location being that close to something like a college, hospitals, like having something that is going to consistently have a draw, I think is such a useful lesson for people to consider when they're doing a short-term rental.
And thinking about hotels. So like this neighborhood, it's actually a very nice neighborhood in St. Paul. And there's like a lot of neighborhoods in St. Paul. But the closest hotel is either 1 to 2 towns away. It's a Roach motel that's also like 5 miles away, or it's downtown St. Paul. This is a neighborhood. Downtown St. Paul is not convenient unless you're going to a concert. So like this kind of thing, like there isn't places for people to stay. It's short-term rentals, or it's a hotel a town away. And granted, in the Twin Cities, like towns are like, they all butt against each other, but it is a ways away. So knowing like those kinds of things, like if you don't know about that market that you're investing in, then you need to find someone that does know. Like find a neighborhood group, make friends with a human in there and be like, hey, is this convenient? Is this inconvenient? Like, because we have cities in Minneapolis, it's block to block. Like some blocks, you do not want to buy a house on those blocks. It's really scary. Like as in there's gang members on each of these blocks. This isn't Minneapolis, but truly some of that stuff happens. And when you're an outsider coming in, you need someone to be able to say, yeah, Matt Grove is fantastic. Like I would love to be there, but Frogtown, little less desirable unless you're going to a soccer game. Like that's really the only reason. So knowing that kind of stuff too is really important. Like wherever you're investing, if you're wholesaling, whatever, you can probably find somebody that's going to be able to get it. But if you're like flipping or maybe keeping, those things are really important to know.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the final section of our show where we talk about where I have a few final questions for you. First one is, what has changed about your approach to real estate investing with your experience?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I don't concentrate on things that piss me off anymore. Like I literally didn't like flipping, and I had to get permission from somebody in my mastermind to say, Tanya, it's okay if you don't flip houses. Like you could do something else in real estate. That's okay. So like knowing that if something isn't your jam, stop like trying to make it work. If you can't get an apartment building or you're really frustrated with the one that you have, it's okay to hand it over to somebody, to be a partner with somebody, to not do that thing. Like there's lots of opportunity in real estate. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself to one thing. Stop doing that.
If you could go back in time, what's one piece of advice you'd have for a younger you?
Like younger 20s or younger, just way younger?
Whatever resonates to you.
Okay, I would just say like, don't care about what the other people say. Like, and I say that because I have a swearing problem, and it's not a problem for most people, but some people see it as a problem. But I am just, when I'm really excited, I use a lot of those words to accentuate my excitement, and it bothers some people. And I now know those aren't my people, and it's okay. They're okay. It's okay to remove yourself from those kinds of people. And I feel like I struggled with that a long time of like what version of me that I'm allowed to let people see. And through finding these people in different communities that accept me for the human that I am and that I like to be, those are my people. And it's okay to not have all of these. Like, I don't have to have 100 people. I just need like 10 that make me feel like it's okay to be this version of myself that I'm the most excited about, that like feels really good, that doesn't have to censor because they, it's against our religion to say the F word. I don't know. But those are like, just find your people. It's okay to find them and then to just be yourself in front of them.
Yep. All right. And last question is, what is the most overlooked or the most overhyped investing strategy right now, in your opinion?
I feel like all of real estate could probably have this, but short-term rentals are pretty overhyped. They were overhyped a couple of years ago for a reason, and now people are realizing that saturation is really hard, and they can't just like throw a house out there and just make money. So they were hyping it really hard. So now it's like the people that are rising up are the ones that actually care to host and do those things. And then honestly, any of them can be overhyped. All of them are work. Anybody that tells you real estate is passive is an effing liar. Like, truly, they fucking lie to you. Because even the people that just give their money, like anybody that's like, hey, Luke, here's $1 million, go make money. They still had to like do some kind of due diligence on you as a person. So they did still have to work on it. And now, like maybe after a few years, they're really comfortable and they're like, oh, here's another million, whatever. But I feel like nothing else is passive. Like, you could give your money to somebody, but it's all work. If somebody says it's passive, like my rentals are passive, they're lying, because they either have to manage the person that's managing them, which takes a lot of work to find that person and to ensure they continue to do their job. Because after 5 years, you might find out, oh, the last year they've been embezzling from me. Like, shit like that happens all the time. These are completely normal stories. And so you're either doing that or you're managing them yourself. And granted, I don't have to work all that much because of my short-term rentals. I still have to manage my process. I have to manage my people that are managing it. And when something breaks, I'm still in charge. It doesn't matter. Like, it all comes back to me in some way, shape, or form. So if somebody's telling you that real estate is passive, they're lying to you, but it is worth the work. Like, the amount I do have to work, like I might have to send text messages while I'm at dinner with my friends, but I don't care because I have so much freedom that I can do stuff like that. Like, I'll work these random weird hours because I get to. Like, it's kind of cool. So I feel like anybody that's hyping real estate, know that it is work. You need to put in the work, but it's worth it. And it's a lot of hard work. But man, life is so much more fun when you get to like go flit off for a month and like still do your business just from somewhere else. Like, that's the kind of shit that I've dreamt about like my entire life. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Before we go, where can people find out more about you? Where can they follow you if they want to follow you? You recently wrote part of a book on short-term rentals that I believe is out. Where can people find out about that?
Yes. So I'm mainly an Instagrammer. I really enjoy that platform. So Tanya Rooney, MN, and my name is Tanya, Rooney, and then Minnesota, so MN. So that's probably the easiest place to go. I have a website that's in my link tree. It's just tanyarooney.com. I write about some random stuff here and there. I do like to help people when they're just starting their short-term rental on Airbnb. Like, I do have some services on there and some coaching. And then, I just wrote a chapter in a book called Hospitable Hosts, which is, I think it's volume 3. And it's just all kinds of hosts that love hosting and love the cool things that come about it. That book is geared towards other hosts. It's really not geared towards guests or anything. So if you want to pick it up, it's on Amazon. It's like an Amazon bestseller and all that good stuff. You can't put in my name. You have to put in Hospitable Host 3. There's so many of us. There's like 30 or 40 authors. So they're still trying to figure out how to get all of us listed on Amazon. But still, definitely go there. I've been on a handful of podcasts. I love that I get to be on Luke's podcast because Luke is the bee's knees. But you can find other podcasts that I've been on and stuff like that. So mainly.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tanya. I think this was a great conversation. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Luke. Bye.